Ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking about this a lot, right? Uber and Lyft are playing chicken with lawmakers, right? And the rideshare giants keep winning. The threat is, hey, if you don't vote our way, if you don't veto, if you don't stand up against the drivers, dear lawmaker, we're pulling out, right? And so Minneapolis absolutely killed rideshare regulations after Uber and Lyft said they would pull out. Was the biggest bluff, right? But the lawmakers caved into the bluff. These weak lawmakers, both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, caved. They were just too scared. Now, Austin, Texas, showed what happens when localities stand their ground. They basically said, F off, get out of here. And they temporarily shut down, but then they came crawling back. Do you think they're going to give up a major city like Austin? No. So lawmakers, moral of the story, guys, grow some balls, man, or some ovaries, right? Grow some testicles here. Stand up to the bullies, don't cave. Just because they say, oh, they're bluffing you, they're going to pull out, doesn't mean that you have to succumb to their threats, right? They're just playing chicken, and you, unfortunately, lawmaker, you're the chicken because you gave up. You were too scared. So we need to educate the lawmakers in the process, show them examples. Earlier this month, the Minneapolis City Council passed a bill designed to make Minneapolis Uber drivers' lives less precarious. And drivers, show these politicians, rally there, expose them, put banners, call them chickens, right? Put banners up there, grow some balls, lawmakers, expose them how weak they are, get the media involved. Drivers do that. You really need to out these fools and show the public how weak they are, that they are backing the companies. Follow Austin's model. If they want to bluff, let them pull out. They will always come back. So called Fair Drive Safe Rides, it would have created minimum pay rates for app-based rideshare workers. They don't want to pay the minimum, and protected them from arbitrary termination. It would have also given drivers and passengers receipts spelling out exactly what portion of each fare went to the gig companies, which drivers say can be as much as half. It's more than half, ladies and gentlemen. But as the bill gained momentum, Uber and Lyft issued a threat, the same one they've used for years against localities weighing new rules for the gig companies. They would pull out if it succeeded. Fair drives would nearly double our operating expenses, Lyft claimed in a letter to the city council without providing any evidence. No evidence given, right? The math simply doesn't make sense, and it would force us to shut down operations in the city. That, dear lawmaker, dear chicken, right? Dear lawmaker, chicken, right? That is the threat right there. We will shut down in your city. They don't shut down. They cannot give up a big city. They've shown it. They've always bluffed. The ones that have stood strong, they're still there. The ones that kicked them out, they came crawling back, right? Then a few days after City Council passed the bill, Mayor Jacob Frey, a Democrat, issued a stunning veto. We didn't have all the data and information, bullshit, that we needed to understand the consequences of the decision we're making, he told the press. He got bought out. What I'm proposing is let's do our homework, let's do this right. Council member Robin Wansley, one of the bill's authors, says the mayor hadn't voiced any concerns until the night before the actual vote. I was very angry and surprised that the mayor took it upon himself to strike up a deal with Uber and decided to basically dismiss 8 months of very intentional hard labor that his staff, our officers, and subject matter experts from other cities poured into creating a very strong evidence-backed policy. And Mayor Frey, I'll tell you straight to your face, you one of those chickens. From now on, this is the sound that you make every single day. What happened in Minneapolis follows an increasingly familiar pattern where lawmakers quash rideshare regulations after Uber and Lyft's warnings. This past May, Minnesota Democratic Governor Tim Walz issued a veto against a bill similar to Fair Drive's Safe Rides when the gig companies threatened they would pull out. And the gig companies have made similar ultimatums in cities and states across the country before watering down or stopping new regulations in their tracks. But why don't localities stand their ground? And what would actually happen if Uber and Lyft pulled out? When a city lets Uber leave, right? To answer that question, look at Austin, Texas. In 2015, the gig companies said they would leave Austin if a law passed requiring rideshare drivers to undergo background checks with fingerprinting. Already a requirement for taxi drivers in the city. The law passed that December, and in May 2016, after spending millions in an unsuccessful attempt to overturn it with a ballot proposition, the gig companies left. Almost immediately, Austinites created alternatives, right? Other companies started emerging. The city's taxi drivers union formed a worker co-op and launched their own service, ATX Co-op Taxi. Local entrepreneurs also launched Ride Austin, a non-profit share app. Andy Triber, Ride Austin's co-founder, says they started coding the app as soon as Uber and Lyft shut down, basically staying up every night for 4 weeks. And then we grew like crazy. Despite Ride Austin's early growing pains, the service grew less reliable outside of downtown Austin, and a server crashed on at least one occasion due to high demand. The app had in just 1 year completed more than 1 million rides and reached nearly half of the city's market share. Then Uber and Lyft came back, right? They came crawling back. The companies had gone directly to Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott, who they convinced to outlaw Austin's rideshare regulations. They started in Austin in May 2017, the same day Abbott signed the bill, and Ride Austin's market share plummeted. In 2020, amid the pandemic, Triber decided to shutter the service indefinitely. Triber says he's proud that the community banded together to make things happen without Uber, and says the experience proved that no city is truly beholden to the rideshare giants. Really, Uber and Lyft's main mode today is the fact that they're on everyone's phones, that there's tons of innovation that's possible, right? Why policy makers feel stuck? It's clear many policymakers aren't ready to take that leap, Wansley, the Minneapolis council member, said in the run-up to the vote. City officials circulated the Austin case study to show that other cities have been able to figure it out. There was once a world where Uber did not exist, not too long ago, and there will be a way in which the service will be provided. But the rideshare lobbyists spent a lot of time with Mayor Frey, which intensified in the days coming up to the vote, she says. And Mayor Frey decided to fall for it. Right, the chicken, Mayor Frey, he fell for it. Katie Wells, a Georgetown postdoctoral geographer and co-author of Disrupting DC, The Rise of Uber and the Fall of the City, I made a video on that, says that a lot of these policymakers that make this compromise feel stuck between a rock and a hard place because of their localities. Disinvestment in the kind of public infrastructure that gig companies have placed. But the other problem is that policy makers simply don't have enough data. The reality is, does the mayor of Minneapolis really have data about how important the operation of these entities are to the city? Probably not. Most cities don't. And I think that's really important to note, that these arguments and conversations, that a lot of policymakers just aren't sure what's happening. The now vetoed bill would have required the companies to share that data with the city. They're saying they're paying minimum wages. They're saying they're paying above $15. And we're like, on what basis? Says Wansley. Uber and Lyft did not respond to a request to share data back to their claims. Obviously not. That we still don't know the answers more than a decade into their operations tells you a lot about how these companies operate behind a veil, says well, and that's part of their power. As long as you're behind the curtain, you can look as big and wonderful as anything. Thank you very much for a great article here, Fast Company. This was written by Wilfred Chan. We appreciate you, my friend. And those little chickens, those chickens that gave in like Frey, those chickens like Waltz, I hope that legislators, policymakers learn from this, right? You don't have to be a chicken. You can stand up to the bullies, because at the end of the day, it's all just a damn bluff. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Gig Rocket. If you drive for any of the food delivery companies, Uber, Caviar, Roadie, Postmates, Grubhub, Drizzly, DoorDash, Instacart, Shipped, Amazon Flex, GoPuff. If you have been wrongfully deactivated, the link is below. We will get you back behind the wheel. We will appeal it to the legal department, and we will also help you go after your lost earnings, right? We'll help you file a small claim. So check it out. The link is below. Please be safe, everyone. Have a good day.